The West was still wild then, a land of long horizons where mountains rolled away in blue-gray waves and grasslands stretched until they melted into the sky. It was a country of rivers that flashed silver in the sunlight, of cottonwood groves and endless sagebrush plains. The railroad had reached Wyoming, but law and order often lagged behind. Ranchers, cowboys, drifters, outlaws, and settlers all struggled to carve out a life on this raw and untamed land. It was in this landscape that one man stood apart. No one in the territory called him by his real name. To them, he was simply the Virginian, a tall, quiet cowboy whose very presence commanded respect. He had come west from Virginia years before, bringing with him an air of old-world gentility wrapped in frontier toughness. His eyes were steady, his voice low, and his hands quick when they needed to be. He was not a man to boast, nor one to seek a fight, but those who crossed him often learned that behind his calm lay an iron will. The story begins with a journey. A young man, an unnamed narrator new to the West, was traveling to take up work at Judge Henry's cattle ranch. On the train and then on horseback, he encountered the Virginian for the first time. The meeting was unforgettable. The narrator, green and unaccustomed to the blunt ways of the West, found himself in a dispute with a driver over the mishandling of luggage. Heated words were exchanged. Just as tempers rose, the Virginian stepped in. Without raising his voice, without drawing a weapon, he settled the matter. A sharp look, a firm word, and suddenly the quarrel ended. The Virginian's presence was enough. There was no need for shouting, no need for threats. His authority was the kind that men recognized instinctively. From that moment, the narrator, like so many others, felt both admiration and curiosity. Who was this man, this cowboy who seemed both rough and refined, stern yet kind? The true measure of the Virginian's character came not long after, in a dusty saloon crowded with ranch hands. There, over whiskey and smoke, a game of poker was being played. Trampas, a cowhand with a mean streak and a taste for trouble, was at the table. He was the kind of man who thrived on bluster, loud, sneering, quick to insult. That night, in the middle of a tense hand, he turned on the Virginian with a slur meant to provoke. "You son of a," Trampas spat, loud enough for the whole room to hear. The saloon went still. All eyes turned to the Virginian. Slowly, calmly, the cowboy laid down his cards. Then, in one smooth motion, he drew his revolver and placed it on the table, pointing it straight at Trampas. "When you call me that," he said in his low, measured drawl, "smile." The words were not shouted. They were spoken with deadly calm, the kind that made men shiver. Trampas froze. The insult died on his lips. He forced a crooked smile, his bravado broken. The moment passed, but the legend grew. The Virginian had not fired a shot, yet he had won. In that instant, the entire room knew the truth. This was a man who could not be bullied. While the Virginian was proving himself among men, another story was quietly beginning, one that would shape the rest of his life. Into the rough, masculine world of Wyoming rode a young woman from Vermont. Molly Stark Wood, a schoolteacher, had come west to take a position in a small frontier town. Molly was unlike anyone the cowboys had seen before. She was refined, educated, and carried herself with the confidence of a woman who had known comfort back east. Her dresses were neat, her manners precise, and her speech carried a crisp New England accent. To the cowboys, she was something out of place, almost exotic. To Molly, the West was equally strange, a place of dust, rough speech, and men who settled disputes with guns rather than words. It was inevitable that she and the Virginian would meet. Their first encounter was almost accidental. Molly had taken her horse out for a ride, exploring the landscape beyond town. Unused to the open plains, she soon lost her way. As the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long, she felt a twinge of unease. Then, from the distance, she saw a rider approaching. The figure grew closer, a tall man on a steady horse. It was the Virginian. He tipped his hat politely. "Ma'am," he greeted, his drawl slow and respectful. "Looks like you've strayed a bit far." Molly bristled. She did not like the suggestion that she needed help. "I am perfectly fine," she replied, though the truth was otherwise. The Virginian only smiled, a glimmer of amusement in his eyes. "Reckon I'll ride with you a spell just to make sure fine stays fine." Against her pride, Molly allowed it. As they rode together, silence stretched, broken only by the sound of hooves. Yet beneath the quiet, something unspoken stirred, a recognition, a spark of interest. For Molly, it was a mixture of irritation and curiosity. This cowboy was unlike the men she knew back east, uncouth in some ways, yet possessed of a dignity that could not be denied. For the Virginian, it was something deeper. He had known many women of the West, but never one like this. Molly was a lady, refined, principled, with a fire of her own, and in her presence he felt both drawn and challenged. As weeks passed, the Virginian continued his duties at Judge Henry's ranch. He was a foreman, respected by his men, steady in judgment and skilled in every task. Cattle roundups filled the days, long rides under the burning sun, nights spent under the stars, the air thick with the smell of dust and leather. It was hard work, but the Virginian carried it with quiet strength. From time to time, Molly visited the ranch or crossed paths with him in town. Each meeting carried its own weight, a word here, a glance there, building slowly into something neither fully admitted. But Molly struggled. She admired the Virginian, but she could not reconcile herself with the West. She saw violence, rough manners, a way of life far removed from her Eastern upbringing. Could she ever belong here? Could she ever tie her life to a man who lived by a code so foreign to her own? The Virginian, for his part, never pressed. He waited, patient, knowing that trust and love could not be forced. Yet life in the West was never free of trouble. Trampas nursed his grudge from the poker game, his pride wounded, his hatred simmering. He spoke against the Virginian when he could, spreading whispers, trying to undermine him. The Virginian ignored it, for now. But everyone knew that one day the simmering tension would boil over. Meanwhile, the narrator, our observer of these events, saw the story unfold with growing fascination. To him, the Virginian was not just a cowboy, but a symbol of the West itself, proud, untamed, yet capable of deep loyalty and love. And so, as Molly taught her schoolchildren in the small frontier classroom, and the Virginian rode the wide open range, the stage was being set for love, for conflict, for choices that would shape their lives forever.